Renfield is a comedy horror movie starring Nicholas Hoult as Renfield and Nicolas Cage as Count Dracula. This movie basically explores on the dynamic between Renfield and Dracula, how Renfield works as Dracula's assistant, and he's basically in a very toxic relationship in this kind of dynamic and he wants to get out of it. Along the way, we see what Renfield's gifts were ultimately given to him by Dracula, the dynamic and the relationship he develops with this police officer played by Awkwafina, and how they ultimately believe they can help each other through their own problems here. Okay, so get into immediately what works in this movie. Okay, Nicholas Hoult and Nicolas Cage, they kill it in this movie. I completely bought into Nicholas Hoult as Renfield. I mean, you just see it in him. He's kind of this broken individual. I mean, he teamed up with Dracula because he thought Dracula back in the past would have helped him out. Didn't really, and now he's kind of been stuck with these powers that he doesn't really necessarily want to have, but he has. He has to tend to Dracula's every will. He has to do whatever Dracula asks of him, even if it means innocent people are going to die. I thought Nicholas Hoult played the part really well as this really just sorrow-filled, depressed, kind of bleak outlook individual. I do think it's a perfect representation of people who are in really toxic relationships that they don't see a way out of. People get very depressed, have very bleak outlook on life. They believe they're trapped. That's what I also say. I did like the dynamic of seeing him go to that therapy group and basically talking about what he's dealing with and why he feels he's stuck, feels he can't get out of it, even though the joke is these people don't understand exactly what it is he's going through until they understand what it is he's going through. But yeah, get into what he is going through. I'm gonna get into Nicolas Cage as Dracula. That was surprisingly great casting. Because we all know Nicolas Cage. I mean, he's outrageous, he's ridiculous, he's, always overacting to a point that either is going to work for the movie or it's not going to work for the movie. In this one, it completely works. I mean, Count Dracula is this narcissistic, evil prick who is just putting Renfield through hell for his own benefits. But it completely worked for this movie because I think because it's Nicolas Cage, it doesn't make you just hate Dracula, maybe in the way that you should, but it really makes you entertained by the character. You get a lot of funny moments with Dracula, you get a lot of funny moments between him and Renfield, and that's what I'll say. This movie, when it wants to bring the laughs, it absolutely brings the laughs. Some of it is very relatable humor, some of it is just perfectly timed humor. Some of it is maybe humor executed from situations that happen in a scene, but I will say this, when they want to nail the humor, for the most part, they do. Also, is this movie violent? Oh yeah, it's extremely violent. Dracula kills a lot of people, Renfield kills a lot of people. It is really cool seeing Renfield's abilities. I mean, he eats bugs and he becomes super powerful. Does it make sense? Maybe not, but you roll with it. And yeah, when he takes people out, it's extremely fucking entertaining when he does. A lot of limbs get delimbed, a lot of blood splatters everywhere, and people die. And so it's kind of deaths that kind of you have to sit there with your friend like, oh, holy shit, yo. Oh, fuck. They're very extreme, very over the top, but that's what makes them entertaining. Now getting to the areas that were not so great in this movie. Okay, I think this movie had stuff in it that just didn't mesh. For example, Awkwafina's character. I was actually really hyped to see her in this movie. I think Awkwafina is fucking hilarious. I think she always plays a great character that just fits with the movies she's in. Like, tell people all the time, Crazy Rich Asians, I wasn't a very big fan of, but she was fantastic in that movie, and I went on the record saying, put her in more shit after that. And naturally, she's deservedly getting more roles, but I gotta say, her role in this movie, I don't think it really worked for Renfield. I mean, the idea is like the movie wants to establish this relationship between them, this romance between them, but I gotta tell you, I never really felt like a romance was really building with them. It just felt like, the movie says it has to have a romance, so, say they have a romance just for the sake of it, but I didn't really believe it. I bought a friendship, sure. I bought a, hey, we need each other, so let's work together kind of dynamic, but I would never go so far to say there was a romance in this movie. And yeah, it's also not that I disliked her character necessarily, but I don't think her character was developed enough. Her character has dealt with a family tragedy, it's made a little bit estranged from other members of her family, but we don't really delve into as much of that as I would have liked to. Enough that would have really made me care about her character and her story arc. And also, there's an angle in this movie. There's a story arc with her that because she's a police officer and, you know, she's trying to get police involved on the whole Dracula Renfield situation, and, you know, no one's really backing her up, no one's believing her. Even delves into the whole, like, you know, how the mob and the police are kind of corruptedly always working together, and, you know, it just leads to some shit, and, you know, she doesn't like that. It just led to a story arc that whenever it was happening, whenever it was going down, I wasn't invested in it. I just didn't care. It just didn't really flow well with the movie. It's like whenever we shifted from whatever was going on with Renfield and Dracula into this, it had me like, no, go back to the other two. I was having more fun there. And also, yeah, speaking of the mob dynamic in this movie, that for me, that really didn't fit. You know, there's like a mob of people. They're kind of like the secondary villains of the story. You know, they're, you know, running shit in the city and everything's going down with them. And eventually it kind of ties into what's going on with Renfield and Dracula. But the way it's tied in, it just feels really forced to set up this big final conflict for the movie. You know, it plays off the whole, like, you know, there's the mob boss who runs it. The mob boss has this really entitled, spoiled son who wants to run things, but he has no idea what the fuck he's doing. And I'm sorry, now, I didn't care for that character. He just annoyed me. I didn't think he was even a good villain to have in a movie like this. It just felt extremely out of place. It felt like something that should have been its own movie, and that's generally speaking how I felt with Awkwafina's storyline. Like, the movie just, like, hunkered down and focused on just making a great story with Renfield and Dracula. This movie probably would have been a lot better than it ended up being, because, like I said, everything that went on with Renfield and Dracula, I really got into. All of the side plot shit with Awkwafina, I didn't care about. It made the movie unfocused, it made it feel a little messy, it made it feel slow, not necessarily because slow stuff was happening, I just wasn't invested. So all in all, I will say, Renfield, it was okay. I love Nicholas Hoult and Nicolas Cage in this movie. Their portrayals of Renfield and Dracula I thought really worked here. Movie has a really good way of telling about a toxic relationship and how people deal with it, how people go through it, even if it is from these, you know, mythical creatures, folklore kind of tale. When the movie wants to be funny, it is very funny. When the movie wants to be violent, it's very effective with its violence and it's very entertaining with it. I will say, I do wish I cared more about Awkwafina's character. I wish her role fit more with the story in this movie, namely fit more with Renfield's storyline. Yeah, the side plots going on with the police and the mob, I don't think it fit well at all with a movie like this. And in the end, this movie left a lot to be enjoyed, but it didn't hit its full potential. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video, and as always, don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.